Hello reactive dog owners, Dalkeith, Midlothian nearby, and indeed anywhere you're watching this. It's Nick at X Valley Dog Rocking. I'm just, wobbly camera there. It's just out for a wee walk with wee Breezy, my collie there. She's just having a lovely little sniff about. Yeah, say hello Breeze. Yeah, okay, that's the best you're going to get out of her. Hello darling, what did I say about you? Give me a yes, good girl, yes you're a good girl. So just out with wee Breezy, yeah, and do you know this afternoon it just kind of started to get a little bit sniffly, and I thought, if I've got a wee bit of a head cold starting, I don't know. Yes, you can have a game of tuggy, darling. Yes, the Breeze has decided that we must be doing something. So having a wee game of tuggy here. So if the camera shakes and wobbles about, yeah, that's because I'm playing tuggy with Breezy. So I kind of thought, yeah, feeling like maybe I've got a wee lurgy kicking about. There's so much of it, I've had so many of my clients saying, I've been feeling a wee bit under the weather lately. I've heard a lot of COVID going about again, and just little winter bugs seem to be starting already, crisis. So it's only barely October, it's not even October yet as I record this. So what am I thinking there? So I think, when people have reactive dogs, nervous dogs, anxious dogs, or even just very, very high energy dogs like little collies like this. Yes, yeah, you chew away at that, Breezy, thank you. So when you've got dogs like that and you're not feeling 100%, it can be a bit challenging. A lot of people feel guilt, they feel quite guilty about not doing enough for their dog, and that's when you get these sort of behaviours as well. So especially very, very high energy dogs. So Breeze is kind of going, come on, play with me, stop doing the video, Dad, you have to play with me instead. Yeah, so I should really stop doing the video soon and just play with Breeze and do a wee training game with her, because that's what she's trying to tell me there. It's important we listen to her dog. But when you're feeling a bit under the weather, a lot of owners, they feel guilt about that. Sorry, I'm just picking up the line there. A lot of owners feel guilty about that. So, and that's pretty normal, actually guilt, especially with reactive dogs, is pretty normal. And especially when you think you're not doing enough. And what I'll encourage a lot of people to do is think about, what have you done? What progress have you made? Because the reactive dog owners I deal with and my clients are absolutely awesome. They work really, really hard with their dogs, and they just want to improve the life of the dog. They just want to make things better for the dog and just give their dog a happy life. And if they feel like that's not happening because maybe they're under the weather, they're not feeling so well, then it's kind of a case of the guilt kicks in. And what we say with that is, there's no need to feel guilty. I think it's good to, just dropped something there. It's good to kind of focus on what progress have you made, what have you done, so it's kind of good to reflect. So, example of this would be, quite often I'll get reactive dog owners who will tell me that, out of 100, maybe their dog reacts to 90 or 95 or sometimes even 100 dogs out of 100. And then when we're further down the line, and we've made a bit of progress on the reactivity, that number's maybe dropped. And maybe it's dropped to 60 out of 100, or 40 out of 100, or 10 out of 100. But it's all progress. But that progress typically doesn't happen overnight, and it's a very rocky road, it's a very wobbly path. So what do I mean by that? So maybe we start with reactivity work, and your dog reacts to, say, 90 plus dogs out of 100. And you start doing the work and it drops quite a bit, and maybe you get to 70 dogs out of 100, but then it goes back up to 80 dogs out of 100, then it goes down to 60, and then it goes back up to 90, and it feels like it's getting a lot worse. And then it drops down to 40 over 100, but over time it starts to average out at a much lower value, and maybe after 3-6 months or so we're down to 20 dogs out of 100. But because it's such a rocky road, you don't really notice it, and the reason you don't notice it is our human brains are pretty much pre-wired to focus on the bad things. It's a very evolutionary thing for survival. When bad things happen, it's good to kind of remember them very, very well to avoid them in the future. So when you do something that's maybe not great and you bump into the big bad wolf in the woods, and your survival is at stake, you can remember what you did then, and therefore that helps you survive and avoid the big bad wolf in the woods anyway. So So it couldn't really help a canine analogy. So that kind of kicks in evolutionary. So our brains are kind of pre-wired to that. So we focus. The point there is we focus very, very much on the bad stuff and remember them better than the good stuff, even when there's so much more good stuff than there is bad stuff. So with dog training, that kicks in, and quite often a lot of my clients will get the feedback where a neighbour or somebody that knows them or has seen them with their dog a lot will turn around to them going, "Oh, you're doing so well," and then the client will say, "Really?" You know, because they've not noticed it, because that's the way your kind of human brain's wired. So it's always good to acknowledge that. And actually, if you are watching this video and you see somebody that's been struggling with a reactive dog and you see things getting better, go just give them a wee nod, because it really, really helps them. And especially when you're kind of feeling under the weather, or you're so busy with work, or life stuff's just kind of happened, that really helps with your state of mind, and it helps kind of with what you're doing about the dog and the guilt that can kick in. The other things to think about is what can you do, you know, when you're feeling like that, or life's like that, and you're feeling maybe a little bit under the weather and you can't, you know, do so much with your dog. So what can you do instead? So quite often, you know, reactive dogs they've got a lot of energy. Sometimes it's anxious energy and nervous energy, but typically high energy dogs. So they need a lot of walking, you know. So it may be that those dogs need 1, 2, sometimes even more than that per day. I do remember my German Shepherd Max, when he was young, minimum of 2 hours a day I needed to be out with him, and doing lots of training when I was out and about with him as well. So there were kind of very high energy walks that I used to have to do with Max, and I really had to do that, because if I didn't, I was scraping them off the ceiling. So how do you kind of cope with that when you're feeling a bit under the weather? Because there's just so much lurgy kicking about just now. It feels like, you know, it's not even the end of September, and it feels like wintry stuff seems to be happening. There's kind of some very cold overnight temperatures in the next couple of days. There's some, you know, although we're kind of seeing the autumnal leaves falling off the trees, it just feels, even for this far north in the country, it's starting to feel like it's a bit more wintry, with the wintry the wintry temperatures and all the kind of lurgy that keeps kicking about. Maybe just because it's been such a damp summer, and it's turned out to be quite a damp autumn as well. I don't know. I'm not really the expert in that stuff. All I know is I feels like I've got a little bit of a head cold to starting this afternoon myself, and I kind of reflect on how many people that have said they've got the lurgy just now. So you know, it's important when it's like that, you focus on what you can do, and my advice would be just do something. So examples of just doing something, what are they? So one of them would be, you know, so if you have to usually walk your dog for an hour or two a day, and you can only manage 10 or 20 minutes, can you manage those 10 or 20 minutes perhaps, you know, 2 or 3 times a day, or maybe more? You know, so lots of smaller walks can actually be more valuable than one big walk sometimes. So can you do more smaller walks, and can you even just do a little bit of training in those walks? You know, it might just be a couple of sits, but at least you're just doing something, and it does add value and it does help. You know, so what can you do when you're like that? I'm going to steal this little phrase off one of my clients who I told her I was going to steal it, because I really like the phrase. So it was one of my new clients said this to me when I was talking about their dog's reactivity, and they said, "Oh, I do lots of kettle training." And I thought, what's kettle training? So yeah, of course, what's kettle training? Basically, you pop the kettle on. What you have to get a kettle takes 2 or 3 minutes to boil, and while the kettle's on the boil and you're having your cup of tea, or you're preparing your cup of tea or coffee, just stop with your dog and just do a little bit of training in the kitchen with them. You know, so it could be whatever, but at least, you know, you're just doing something. So when time's tight or you're not feeling well, and it's just that bit, you know, perhaps you're putting the kettle on to make a hot toddy, but you know, you're just doing something, and just doing something's better than doing nothing. So what I would say is, if you're not in a 100% state where you can devote the time and energy that you usually can, because perhaps life's taken over, work's been really busy, or you're just feeling a little bit under the weather, you know, the biggest bits of advice is please don't beat yourself up. It's not going to get you anywhere. Think about all the progress you've made with your dog, all the positives you've made with your reactive dog, and also just do something. You know, it's better than doing absolutely nothing. you know, and you know, that way when you start to come out of it and you start to feel a bit better, you know, it's going to work quite well for you. So and certainly if you've got one of these guys like my wee collie here, hey Breezy, hello baby Carol, he's a good Carol, there we go. When you've got a collie, you know, collie owners, you'll know as well as I do, you just don't get a day off.